Your phone buzzes on the kitchen table while you're pouring your morning coffee, and you glance down to see a text message that makes your stomach drop. It says there's been suspicious activity on your checking account, and if you didn't authorize it, you need to call the number listed immediately. Your first thought isn't about the message itself. It's about the money, maybe your Social Security deposit, or maybe the savings you've spent 30 years building. You pick up the phone, your hands are a little unsteady, and you dial the number without stopping to think about where that number actually came from. That single moment, that split second of fear and urgency, is exactly what a scammer is counting on. If you enjoy practical tips that help retirees protect their money, consider subscribing to Retiree's Guide, because we post videos like this every week to help you stay one step ahead of the people trying to take advantage of you. Here's something that might surprise you. The fraud alert itself can be the fraud, not a warning about a scam, but the scam itself dressed up to look exactly like the kind of message your real bank would send. Because it borrows the language, the logos, and even the tone of a legitimate security notice, it can be incredibly difficult to tell the difference in that first panicked moment. In just a little while, I'll walk you through the exact warning signs that separate a real alert from a fake one, and I'll also share the safest way to respond, no matter which one you're looking at. But first, let's talk about why this particular scam works so well, especially on people who are careful, smart, and paying attention. Most people assume scams target the careless, the people who don't read carefully, who click without thinking, and who give out information to strangers. But fraud alert scams are different. They're built specifically to work on cautious people. Think about it this way. If you're the kind of person who checks your bank statements regularly, worries about identity theft, or has even set up alerts on your own accounts to stay protected, you are actually the ideal target for this scam. Why? Because you already believe that fraud alerts are important and that you should respond to them quickly. The scammer isn't trying to convince you that fraud is real. You already know that, and they're simply using your own vigilance against you. Here's how it typically unfolds. You receive a text message, an email, or sometimes even a phone call claiming there's unusual activity on your account. It might mention a large purchase you supposedly made, a wire transfer, or a login from an unfamiliar device, and the message is always short, urgent, and gives you exactly one way to respond. Whether that's clicking a link, replying with a specific word, or calling a phone number, that single path forward is one of the biggest red flags. Though in the moment, it doesn't feel like a red flag at all. It feels like help, and it feels like your bank is being efficient and protective. Let's pause here for a second, because I want you to really picture this scenario. Say the text claims a $600 purchase was just made at an electronics store 2 states away. You didn't make that purchase, and panic sets in immediately. The message says to reply, "No," if this wasn't you, or call the number provided to speak with a fraud specialist. So you reply, "No." Within a minute or two, your phone rings, and a calm, professional-sounding person introduces themselves as a member of your bank's fraud department. They already seem to know some details about you, maybe your name or the last 4 digits of your account number, and that makes them seem legitimate. What you don't realize is that scammers often already have pieces of your personal information from previous data breaches, and using a few accurate details is a well-known tactic to build trust quickly. Now, here's where the real danger begins. This fraud specialist tells you that in order to stop the fraudulent transaction, they need to verify your identity by asking for your online banking username, your password, and then a one-time verification code that was just texted to your phone. Everything about the conversation is designed to feel routine, even boring, because scammers know that boredom lowers your guard faster than excitement does. But here's the truth that every legitimate bank will tell you. Your bank will never call you and ask for your full password, and they will never ask you to read them a one-time verification code that was just sent to your phone. That code exists specifically so that only you can approve a login or a transaction. If someone asks you for it, even someone who sounds completely professional and already has some of your real information, that is the moment to hang up. Have you ever received a text message like this, one that claimed to be from your bank about unusual activity? I'd genuinely love to know, so go ahead and leave a comment below because hearing about real experiences helps other viewers recognize these messages before they fall for them. Let's talk about why these scams have become so convincing in recent years. It used to be that you could spot a scam by its poor spelling, awkward grammar, or a strange-looking email address, and while those signs still show up sometimes, scammers have gotten much better at mimicking real institutions. They often use the same color schemes, the same fonts, and even copy the exact wording that banks use in their legitimate alerts. Some scammers use what's called caller ID spoofing, which means the number that shows up on your phone can display your actual bank's name and customer service number, even though the call isn't coming from your bank at all. This is one of the most important things to understand, because many people believe that if the caller ID matches their bank, the call must be real. Unfortunately, that's simply not something you can rely on anymore. Text messages carry their own version of this trick, and a fraudulent text can appear in the very same message thread as your bank's real, legitimate alerts. This happens because of a technique where scammers register a sender ID that matches your bank's actual short code, so to your phone it looks like just another message from the same sender you've trusted for years. This is genuinely one of the more sophisticated tricks out there, and it's a big reason why so many careful, financially savvy people still get fooled. In just a moment, I'll walk you through the specific signs that can help you spot one of these fake alerts, even when it looks nearly identical to the real thing. But before we get there, I want to talk about the emotional side of this, because I think it's just as important as the technical side. When you receive a message that says your money might be at risk, your brain doesn't respond logically at first. It responds emotionally, and that's true for everyone, regardless of age or experience. Fear activates a part of the brain that pushes you toward quick action rather than careful thinking, and scammers understand this deeply. They design their messages specifically to trigger that fear response, using phrases like immediate action required, your account will be suspended, or unauthorized transaction detected, because they create urgency. And urgency is the enemy of careful thinking. This is why one of the simplest and most powerful things you can do is give yourself permission to slow down. If you receive any message claiming there's a problem with your account, you do not have to respond immediately, even if the message says you do. A real bank understands that account security sometimes requires you to take a moment, verify things independently, and respond in a way that feels safe to you. If a message is pressuring you to act within minutes or threatening some kind of loss if you don't respond right away, that pressure itself is a warning sign worth paying attention to. So how do you tell the difference between a real fraud alert and a fake one? Let's go through this together, step by step, because I want you to walk away from this video with a clear, practical plan rather than just a list of worries. First, look at how you're being asked to respond. Legitimate fraud alerts from banks typically ask you to log into your account directly through the bank's official app or website, or they direct you to call the number printed on the back of your debit or credit card. They generally do not include a clickable link asking you to log in immediately, and they do not provide a phone number within the message itself for you to call. If a text or email includes a link or phone number and urges you to use it right then and there, treat that with real suspicion. Instead of clicking anything, open your banking app separately using the same app you always use, or call the number on the back of your card. This way, you're controlling the path to your bank rather than letting the message control it for you. Second, pay attention to what information is being requested. A legitimate fraud investigation may ask you to confirm whether a specific transaction was yours, and that's completely normal. But if anyone, whether by phone, text, or email, asks you for your full password, your PIN, or a one-time verification code, that is not something a real bank employee will ever request. These codes exist as a security barrier specifically to prevent unauthorized access, and no legitimate representative needs you to read one aloud or type it into a website to resolve a fraud concern. Third, consider the tone of the message. Real fraud alerts tend to be fairly neutral in tone and simply inform you that something needs review. Fourth, and this one surprises a lot of people, even a phone call that seems to originate from your bank's real number isn't proof of legitimacy. Because caller ID can be spoofed, the safest verification method is always to hang up and call the number printed on your card or listed on your bank's official website. Type it in manually, rather than clicking it from a text or email. This single habit of hanging up and calling back independently is one of the most effective ways to protect yourself because it completely removes the scammer's ability to control the conversation. Let's talk about what happens if you accidentally click a link or provide some information before realizing something feels wrong. First, know that this happens to intelligent, careful people all the time, and there's absolutely no shame in it. Scammers are professionals at what they do, and their entire job is convincing regular people that something urgent is happening. If you realize you may have shared sensitive information, the first step is to contact your bank directly using the number on your card or their official website. Never use any number or link from the suspicious message itself. Let your bank know what happened so they can monitor your account and take protective steps, which might include changing your online banking password, issuing a new card, or placing additional alerts on your account. If you shared a social security number or other highly sensitive identifying information, you may also want to consider placing a fraud alert or credit freeze with the major credit bureaus. That can help prevent someone from opening new accounts in your name. It's also worth reporting the scam. You can report suspicious text messages and phishing attempts to the Federal Trade Commission at reportfraud.ftc.gov, and you can report phishing text messages by forwarding them to 7726, which spells spam on most phone keypads. These reports help investigators track scam patterns and can contribute to shutting down fraudulent operations. It might not feel like a big action in the moment, but every report adds to a larger picture that helps protect other people too. Now let's shift gears for a moment and talk about a related trick that often shows up alongside fake fraud alerts. Understanding it will make you even harder to fool. Some scammers, after gaining a bit of your trust through a fake fraud call, will tell you that in order to protect your money, you need to move it to a new, safer account. They might refer to this as a temporary holding account or claim it's a special secure account set up by the bank's fraud department. This is one of the clearest signs of a scam in progress. No legitimate bank fraud department will ever instruct you to transfer your own money to another account, whether that's through a wire transfer, a cash withdrawal, gift cards, or even cryptocurrency. If anyone, under any circumstances, tells you that moving your money is the way to keep it safe, that is the moment to stop the conversation entirely and contact your bank independently. I want to pause here and ask you something because I think it says a lot about how these situations actually unfold. Has your bank or someone claiming to represent your bank ever asked you to do something that just felt slightly off, even if you couldn't quite explain why at the time? That instinct, that small feeling of hesitation, is worth trusting. Scammers rely on you overriding that instinct because it feels impolite or paranoid to question someone who sounds professional and knowledgeable. But your instincts, especially after decades of managing your own finances, are more reliable than you might give yourself credit for. Let's talk about another version of this scam that's becoming increasingly common, involving email rather than text messages or phone calls. These emails often look remarkably similar to real bank communications, complete with logos, footers, and formatting that closely resembles legitimate correspondence. They might claim your account has been temporarily locked due to suspicious activity and include a button or link inviting you to verify your identity to restore access. Clicking that link typically leads to a fake login page designed to look identical to your bank's real website. If you enter your username and password there, you're not logging into your account. You're handing your credentials directly to the scammer. One reliable habit that helps here is checking the actual web address before entering any information, although I'll admit this isn't always foolproof since scammers can create addresses that look very similar to the real thing. A more dependable approach is simply avoiding links in banking emails altogether. Instead, open a new browser window, type your bank's website, address yourself, or use your saved bookmark, and log in that way. If there's truly an issue with your account, it will appear when you log in directly without needing to click anything from the email. Something else worth mentioning is how these emails often try to create a sense of legitimacy through small, believable details. They might reference your city, a partial account number, or even mention a recent transaction they've somehow learned about, perhaps from an old data breach unrelated to your bank entirely. It can feel unsettling to receive a message that seems to know something real about you, and scammers count on that feeling to lower your guard. Just remember that knowing a piece of your information doesn't mean someone has access to your accounts, and it certainly doesn't mean you should provide anything further. If anything, that familiarity should raise your suspicion rather than ease it, because a legitimate bank rarely needs to prove who you are by reciting your own details back to you. It also helps to remember that legitimate banks are in many ways predictable in a good sense. They tend to communicate through consistent channels you've used before, rarely ask you to act within minutes, and almost never introduce brand new contact methods you haven't seen previously. If a message suddenly asks you to communicate through a new app, a different phone number, or an unfamiliar email address that doesn't match what you've used in the past, treat that change with real caution. Scammers often try to move the conversation away from channels where the bank might catch on, steering you toward text messages, personal email, or even encrypted messaging apps that feel more private but are actually much harder for anyone else to monitor or verify. At this point, you might be wondering how to stay ahead of scams like these as they continue to evolve. Unfortunately, this isn't a problem that's simply going to disappear because scammers constantly adjust their tactics and new versions of these schemes appear all the time. But here's the reassuring news. The core principles for protecting yourself remain remarkably consistent, even as the specific tricks continue to change. If you remember just a few key habits, you'll be well protected against the vast majority of these attempts, no matter how convincing the disguise. The first habit is simple. Never provide passwords, PINs, or one-time verification codes to anyone who contacts you, regardless of how legitimate they sound or what number appears on your caller ID. The second habit is to always verify independently using contact information you already trust, such as the number on the back of your card or your bank's official website typed in manually. The third habit is to slow down whenever a message creates urgency. Real financial institutions understand that customers need time to verify and respond thoughtfully, and they build their processes around that understanding. Scammers don't because urgency is their most valuable tool. Many banks also offer additional layers of protection that are worth looking into if you haven't already. These can include transaction alerts, two-factor authentication for online banking, and the ability to temporarily lock your debit or credit card directly through the bank's app if you ever suspect unauthorized use. These features vary by institution, so it's worth checking with your specific bank to see what's available and how to set everything up. Taking a few minutes to explore these features while you're calm is far easier than trying to figure them out during a stressful situation. Let's talk for a moment about the branch experience too, because not everyone banks primarily online. This scam has versions that also target people who prefer visiting a physical branch or handling things by phone with a live representative. Some scammers follow up a fake text or email with a phone call, pretending to schedule an in-person appointment to resolve the fraud issue. Their goal is to build even more trust before asking for sensitive information. Others may tell you to visit your local branch, withdraw cash, and later hand it to someone claiming to be a bank courier or fraud specialist. This is worth repeating because it comes up often enough to matter. No legitimate bank employee will ever ask you to withdraw cash and hand it to a courier, a delivery service, or anyone claiming to represent the bank outside of a normal verified transaction. If a call ever heads in that direction, hang up immediately. If you're unsure, visit your local branch in person and speak with a bank employee face to face. Another version of this scam involves what's sometimes called a callback trap. You receive a text alert, and instead of replying, you call what appears to be your bank's customer service number. Sometimes that number is found through an online search rather than the number printed on your card. Unfortunately, scammers have become very skilled at creating fake customer service listings that appear in web searches, sometimes through paid advertisements or manipulated search results. That means even doing your own research doesn't always guarantee you're reaching the real institution. The safest source for your bank's phone number is always the back of your physical card, a recent paper statement, or a verified number you've already saved in your phone. It may seem like a small detail, but it closes one of the most common gaps that scammers rely on. I also want to gently address something that often comes up in conversations like this. That feeling is embarrassment. If you've ever come close to falling for a scam, or if you know someone who has, it's completely normal to feel tempted to keep it quiet. You might worry about embarrassment or fear that others will question your independence. I want to be very clear about this. Falling for a well-designed scam is not a reflection of your intelligence or your capability. These schemes are created by people who study human psychology and constantly refine their methods to become more convincing. Being targeted doesn't mean you were careless. It simply means you were targeted by professionals whose entire job depends on deception. The people who protect themselves best aren't the ones who never feel fooled for a moment. They're the ones who pause, verify, and aren't afraid to ask for a second opinion whenever something feels uncertain. It's also worth having a conversation with family members about these scams, not because you need someone else managing your finances, but because an extra set of eyes and a quick second opinion can be incredibly valuable. Scammers often try to isolate their targets by discouraging them from talking to family or friends. They may even claim the situation is confidential or that involving someone else could interfere with resolving the problem. A legitimate bank will never discourage you from speaking with a trusted family member about your account. If anyone tells you to keep a call or message secret, treat that as an important warning sign all by itself. I know this has been a lot of information, and if you've made it this far, I genuinely appreciate you sticking with me. Understanding these details really can make the difference between recognizing a scam in time and becoming the victim of one. So let's bring everything together with one simple, practical approach you can remember. When you receive a text, email, or phone call claiming suspicious activity on your account, take a breath first and remind yourself that you have time, even if the message insists that you don't. Don't click any links, don't call any numbers provided in the message, and never share passwords, PINs, or verification codes with anyone, no matter how official they sound. Instead, open your banking app the way you normally would, or call the number printed on the back of your card. If there's truly a problem, your bank will help you resolve it through that verified channel. If there isn't a problem, you've just protected yourself from an increasingly common and increasingly convincing scam. If you've experienced something similar to what we talked about today, whether it was a suspicious text, a strange phone call, or even a close call, please share your experience in the comments below. Your story could genuinely help another retiree recognize the same warning signs before it's too late. And if you know someone, a friend, a neighbor, or a family member who uses online banking or receives bank text alerts, please consider sharing this video with them. Sometimes the person who needs this information most isn't the one watching right now, but someone they care about. Protecting your finances in retirement isn't about living in fear or distrusting every message that comes your way. It's about knowing what to look for, trusting your instincts when something feels off, and having a simple, reliable plan for verifying information independently. Scammers are counting on speed and panic to get past your natural caution. Now that you understand how these fraud alert scams really work, that advantage is gone. You know what a real alert looks like. You know what a legitimate bank will never ask you to do, and you know exactly what steps to take the next time your phone buzzes with an urgent message. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope this video leaves you feeling more confident and better prepared, not more worried. That's the whole purpose behind Retiree's Guide, giving you clear, honest, and practical information you can actually use in your everyday life. Take care of yourself, take care of your money, and I'll see you in the next video.